If you're going through an awakening and you've experienced insomnia, nerve pain, headaches, head pressure, tremoring, shaking, this is all quite normal and what I'm going to talk about in this video. So insomnia is probably one of the most common complaints, and it's often not for the whole awakening, but certainly cycles around from time to time. And the reason why we can have insomnia is partly to do with Kundalini energy. So the Kundalini energy is a very specific thing. It's an energy force stored at the base of the spine that is activated at some stage during awakening, and it comes up and it has its own wisdom and circles up through the chakra system, cleansing each chakra and preparing the energy body for awakening. And it can happen multiple times during the awakening process. The Kundalini energy itself can feel like heat. It can feel like it's coming up against blocks. It can bring up trauma. It can bring up shaking and tremoring. So Kundalini alone causes a lot of physical problems, but it can also cause pain as it comes up against blocks. And so the excess energy that we have in the system when Kundalini is activated can unfortunately make us have some trouble sleeping. And another reason why we can have insomnia is because we have a lot of patterns that we're working through. There's karma and there's trauma imprints and all this sort of noise that's being activated, coming from being unconscious in the system to being conscious. And when that happens, it creates noise in the nervous system. And so that is, of course, going to make it harder to sleep. So that's another reason why. So probably the next most common physical complaint is headache and head pressure. And this could be really anywhere. It could be, again, because of Kundalini at the third eye block, at the crown chakra, both very common places to experience pain and pressure. We can also feel the sort of rewiring that's going on the level of the mind and the brain. And if we're sensitive to that, we can actually feel pressure or pain as that is happening through the awakening process. And also sometimes if we are trying to dissociate and we are trying to come up and out and transcend the body, we can feel ourselves like leaving this part of the body around the crown chakra. And we can actually feel the sensation of that, and that can cause pressure and pain as well. And so when we're working with excess energy or working with pain in the head, grounding and trying to be in the body and going out into nature and allowing earth to drain off some of that excess energy can be extremely helpful. So just to go outside and put your feet in the ground or to lean up on a tree and just imagine excess energy going out of the body and into the earth can be very helpful to start to balance out some of these sort of energy problems that are happening during awakening. Nerve complaints, nerve pain is also very common, whether it's restless leg syndrome or even a serious nerve condition. There's all kinds of nerve problems that can happen as the nervous system is being rewired during awakening. And of course, we always want to get things checked out medically first and not just assume it's awakening. But if we don't get a diagnosis, then we can often just assume that it's part of the awakening process. And it's likely not to bother you forever. It's just a stage that we go through where sometimes we can't sleep, sometimes we have headaches, sometimes we have nerve pain, and we sort of just learn to go with the flow of it and just see what happens next. Having memory problems is really common, and it affects each person differently how severe that is. I certainly have a very terrible memory. If you come from a trauma background, it's going to be even worse probably. For some people, the memory problems get better once they're awake or as they progress through the awakening process. But for other people like myself, it didn't really ever get any better, but you learn how to manage without having much of a memory. You realize you don't really need to keep accessing past stories and memories to be able to function in the present moment. So that can be a little bit concerning when we can start to see that slipping away and sort of we may even feel like we're getting sort of dementia symptoms. It can be concerning. So once we get that all medically checked out, we can sort of relax into, okay, this is a part of that rewiring and the process of awakening and letting go of the past story where memory is also affected. It can also make you feel disorientated. You can get confused quite easily, maybe not know where you are at times. As you're having these big shifts and there's so much change going on, it's such a transformation, it can be destabilizing at times. And so you just have to really take it easy, be kind on yourself, don't drive if you're not able to, and just sort of wait it out. And often it's just a cycle that we'll work through and then you'll be fine again. Another thing that can happen is all kinds of very random physical pains and random illnesses that can pop out of nowhere. So as we start to get in contact with the unconscious material that's been hiding out in there, it often manifests as physical symptoms. And so this could be really anything at all. It'll be different for each person. And what you'll find that if you examine it and you learn about the spiritual meaning of that body part or of that illness, you can often find that it's some sort of karmic pattern or energy block or something along those lines that wants to be worked through. And how you work through that will be different for each person, but it could involve doing yoga or going to a Reiki healer or getting acupuncture or meditating or on that body part, talking to that body part. It doesn't really matter how it unfolds, but working on it in some way to sort of see why that contraction is there causing that pain. And often we can shift something just through doing some sort of work like that. Tremoring and shaking is very common, and this releases trauma and it releases excess energy, just like animals do, where they shake things off. So it's a wonderful way to release excess energy. And so this will happen spontaneously. Some people even go into spontaneous poses and all kinds of things can happen. It's the physical component to awakening is kind of bizarre and unique of how much it will affect you. Most people experience something, at the very least, maybe some restlessness and maybe a headache, that type of thing, but it could be really quite extreme and very physical and quite physically demanding, the awakening process for some people. I'd love it if you could put a comment below and explain what sort of physical symptoms you've had, so it really helps other people to see that what they're going through is normal during the awakening process, because it can be a little bit concerning when we're having physical issues when we're going through this process.